didn't raise his voice. He didn't cuss. No dramatic gestures, no entitled posturing. Just a simple question, calm and genuine. Is the chicken sandwich made fresh or just reheated? The teenager behind the counter didn't even try to hide her annoyance. She rolled her eyes with the kind of exhaustion that didn't belong to someone her age. Under her breath, she muttered, "If you want fresh, go cook it yourself." Then, louder with a tone sharpened by routine disrespect, she added, "You're holding up the line. Please leave, sir." Daniel blinked. Not from her words, but from the surreal weight of them. This was his restaurant. He turned around slowly, eyes sweeping over the faces in line. No one said a word. No one stepped in. A sea of eyes flicked toward him, then away, as if distance might keep them from having to choose a side. Moments later, the manager appeared. Lean frame, tattoos peeking from under his sleeves, a Bluetooth headset in one ear and a practiced smirk in the corner of his mouth. "Sir," he said, voice devoid of curiosity, "if you're not ordering, you're disrupting service. Please exit." Daniel stepped outside into the early dusk, not a word spoken. Through the window, his gaze landed on the glowing signage, his company's name, lit in bold golden red. The same logo he'd designed in a rented garage 12 years ago, with a Sharpie, a few dollars, and a fire in his chest that had once felt unstoppable. Just 5 minutes earlier, he had walked in unnoticed. No entourage, no flashy entrance, just a man in a plain gray hoodie, worn jeans, and a FaceTime had softened into near anonymity. He didn't want special treatment. He wasn't testing them. He was just hungry. And curious. The kind of curiosity that only comes when something you once loved starts to feel distant. He'd asked a few polite questions. "What oil do you use for the fries? Do you clean the grill each shift?" Enough to raise suspicion, apparently. The girl behind the register had frowned and signaled to the manager like she was flagging down security for a threat. "Who's asking inspection type stuff?" she whispered when he arrived, mid-chew on a piece of gum. The manager glanced at Daniel. Older, soft-spoken, alone, no clipboard, no ID, just eyes that looked like they'd seen more than they said. "If you're with corporate, show ID. If not, order, eat, and don't waste our time." Daniel held his gaze for a moment longer than most would, pushing his head back slowly. "I'm just hungry," he said. "Then act like it," the manager snapped, already walking away. Daniel quietly placed his order and sat near the window. He didn't open the menu. He just listened. To the fryers hissing, the baby crying in the far booth, the scrape of chairs, the flat shuffle of indifference. A cold drink hit his tray with a dull thud. No smile, no eye contact. The girl was gone before he could say thank you. He took one slow bite of the sandwich. The bread was lukewarm, lettuce limp, sliding out like it had somewhere better to be. And in that moment, something inside him cracked. Not in anger, but in sorrow. A sorrow so quiet it didn't show on his face, but it wrapped itself around his heart. Then he heard it. By the kitchen door, a conversation not meant for his ears. Too loud to be careless, too careless to be kind. "That's him," someone said. "Old guy at table 3. Been here 3 days in a row. Keeps asking questions." A second voice, male, clipped, impatient. "Tell him whatever makes him shut up. If he asks about the fryer, say it's brand new." Daniel didn't stop chewing, but he stopped seeing. His eyes were fixed on the kitchen window where the manager now stood, laughing. He pointing, as if none of it mattered. And maybe, to them it didn't, but to Daniel it was everything. Suddenly a man in a crisp polo stepped in from the side, tall, firm posture, name tag gleaming under fluorescent lights. "Sir," he said flatly. "If you're not ordering anything else, we've got a bit of a lunch rush." Daniel blinked. His tone was calm, almost too calm. "I just asked a question," he replied, voice steady but weary. The manager didn't budge. "You're holding up the line," he said, with a mechanical smile that died before it reached his eyes. "Maybe check our website for details." Daniel stepped back. His heart slowed as his face remained unreadable. A practiced mask he hadn't used in years. The room didn't notice, but he did. The silence around him was deafening, not because of its volume, but because of its meaning. He walked quietly back to his table. The tray still sat in front of him, untouched. The steam had faded, and in a way, so had he. Across the counter, he heard it. Just a whisper, but sharp enough to cut through the noise. "She's dealing with one of those weirdos again," followed by laughter. Not cruel, just careless, and somehow that was worse. The manager leaned in to the girl, chuckling. Some old guy poking around, probably Yelp-obsessed, or just bored. Another voice joined in, lower, lazier. "If he's not eating, just tell him to leave." Daniel didn't move, but something inside him cracked, slow and sharp, like old wood splintering under pressure. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his leather notebook. On a fresh page, he wrote a single line. "I built this place and they pushed me out of it." He stood up, walked to the trash can, dumped the entire tray, untouched. No one stopped him. No one even looked up. And that, more than the cold sandwich or the empty service, hurt in a way words never could. Back in his car, Daniel checked the time. 10:42 a.m. Too early for lunch. Too late to pretend any of this was nothing. He opened his notebook again and wrote 2 words. Disconnected culture. He circled it twice, harder the second time. Through the windshield he stared at the building. Bright colors, bold signage, a place meant to feel warm. But it didn't. Not anymore. Now, it radiated apathy. A young man stepped outside, apron stained, name tag crooked. He lit a cigarette with trembling hands, checked his phone, then looked around like he was searching for a reason to go back in, but found none. Daniel rolled his window down halfway. The kid glanced at him, unsure, then looked away and slipped back through the side door. No pride, no energy, just motion. Daniel reached for his phone, pressed record, his voice steady but low. "This is the second location in 3 days. Same attitude, same decay. This isn't bad luck, it's something deeper." That evening, Daniel sat at his kitchen table. The lights were dim. His dinner was untouched. The notebook lay open beside him. He flipped through old training manuals, pages worn thin, corners dog-eared, handwritten notes crammed in the margins. Kindness is policy. Every customer counts. He turned to the hiring section. His own words, merit-based. No relatives, no favoritism, just skill, attitude, and effort. He'd believed in those lines, every syllable. But over time they'd become more suggestion than law, guidelines softened by convenience. His phone buzzed. Lauren's name lit the screen. His first hire, now a regional supervisor. He didn't answer. Instead, he opened to a blank page, wrote down the names of the stores he'd visited, then added 5 more. Tomorrow he'd go again. No notice, no scripts, just one question in mind. Did I lose them? Or did they stop listening? That night, Daniel found himself seated alone in another store, tucked into a corner booth, a half-empty tray in front of him, his cup untouched. From behind the counter, voices floated over the low hum of fryers and drive-through orders. "Table 3, that old guy again, right?" "Yeah, he's the one Brett warned about." Daniel slipped his hand into his coat pocket, thumbed the recorder and clicked it on. Then the words came, sharp and fast. Whatever he asks, just say yes. Food's hot, service is perfect, no complaints. Got it? Another voice, younger, nervous. But what if it's not true? Doesn't matter, the first snapped. We don't need truth, we need 5 stars. Daniel looked down at his hands, steady but cold, jaw clenched. He clicked the recorder off and scribbled in his notebook. Loyalty forced, truth silenced. This isn't mismanagement. It's manipulation. For the first time, he felt it rising in him, this quiet fire that had simmered for too long. He didn't argue, didn't confront, just said softly, "Thank you." The boy behind the counter nodded once, then disappeared like smoke. Fast, quiet, like he'd never been there. Daniel leaned against his car, scribbled another note. Freezer undocumented, storage unsafe. Then one more line, written slower. He spoke up, risked something. Across the lot, a delivery truck pulled in hard. No safety cones, no guide. Tires screeched as the driver yelled into his phone. A crate slid sideways and hit the pavement with a hollow crack. No one came to help. No one even looked up. Daniel watched the driver, sweating, pick up the crate alone, then slam the bay door shut. Frustrated, forgotten. Daniel turned the key. The engine coughed, caught. But he didn't drive. Instead, he stared at the building and whispered, almost to himself, "They're not broken. They're abandoned." Later that night, back home, he sat at his desk, phone off, house silent, notebook open. He read through every note, short lines, plain facts, but each one carried weight. The tension in the air, the tone of the voices, the fear in the eyes of people who once believed. He drew a line down the page and wrote pattern at the top. Then, store by store, he listed the behaviors that shouldn't have been repeated: corner cutting, silence, decay masked by fake smiles. He flipped to the front of the notebook. There on the very first page were the words he'd written 12 years ago. Build with purpose, protect it when no one's watching. He stared at those words until they burned. Finally, he picked up his phone and called the one person who still understood. Lauren answered on the second ring. Her voice was calm, clipped, familiar. "Daniel, everything okay?" He hesitated, then said quietly, "No, it's not." She didn't speak. She waited. "I've been to 4 stores this week," he continued. "They're not just struggling, they've changed. The values, they're gone." Lauren let out a slow breath. "I've been seeing it too. Turnover reports don't match staff feedback. Complaints are getting buried." Daniel nodded, even though she couldn't see him through the phone. "It's deeper than we thought," he said softly, like confessing a truth too long denied. "Then we dig?" Lauren replied without hesitation. "You want to start with HR? Operations?" "No," he said after a pause. "We start on the ground, face to face." Silence lingered, the kind that's not empty but full of weight. Then, with a quiet intensity, Lauren asked, "You ready to go all the way with this?" Daniel glanced down at the notebook lying open in front of him. His handwriting trembled slightly on the page. "I wasn't," he whispered. "But now I am." The next day, they met in a quiet corner of the regional office. No suits, no laptops, no pretense. Just 2 people who remembered how it all began. Lauren spread a stack of folders across the table. Store audits, exit interviews, incident reports hidden behind polished numbers. "Look at this," she said, tapping a page. "Manager reviews. All 5 stars. But 3 of those employees quit in the same month." Daniel's brow furrowed as he flipped to another sheet. Late shipments, food waste spikes, yet sales charts gleamed like trophies. "Someone's cleaning the data," he muttered. From inside, Lauren nodded. And the good people are leaving, the wrong ones are staying. He tapped his pen against the folder, the rhythm tight with frustration. It's not just poor management, it's control. They're building something behind closed doors. Lauren's expression sharpened. Then we tear it down, one store at a time. She slid another folder across the table. Start here, Brett Madigan, district manager. 3 stores under him, all showing the same signs. Daniel opened the file. Photos, schedules, complaint logs. Too neat, too clean, too staged. Staff turnover's low, he said slowly, but customer reviews, they're overly positive. Identical on paper, Lauren said, but off paper, it's chaos. She pointed to a staff chart. Same last names, same home addresses. They'd built a network, Daniel realized. Inside the system. Hiding in plain sight. May they protect each other, she added, promote each other, block outsiders. Daniel closed the folder with quiet finality. No more hiding, we don't fix this behind a desk. He picked up the notebook and wrote down one more name. Brett. That afternoon, Daniel drove to one of Brett's locations, a busy store on a corner lot. Bright banners flapped in the breeze. Inside, it was immaculate. Smiling staff, polished counters, fast service. A facade built to impress. He ordered a meal and took a seat near the kitchen hallway, close enough to hear, far enough to blend in. 10 minutes in, voices trickled through the kitchen wall. You see that guy at table 6? Brett warned us. Said he might be from corporate. So what? Another replied. Everything's staged. Daniel didn't move. A fry dangled from his fingers. Forgotten. You told your cousin to stop clocking in late, right? She's covered. Besides, she's dating Brett. He won't let anything happen to us. Daniel's eyes drifted to the wall, painted in bright red, adorned with cheerful slogans. But behind it, something rotten was pulsing. After finishing his meal, he stepped outside, didn't look back, didn't need to. He sat in his car, windows rolled up, a /C off, silence pressing against the glass. He replayed the voices in his mind. Covered, cousin, dating Brett. He opened the notebook, flipped to the back, and wrote in bold strokes. Protected by loyalty, not merit. Then, underlined, performance doesn't matter, relationships do. He hesitated, then added one more. This isn't a team, it's a closed circle. Across the lot, a new shift walked in. One of them high-fived the manager, another skipped the line and vanished into the back. No discipline, no accountability, just access. Daniel turned on his recorder. This isn't mismanagement, he said quietly. This is a culture. And we let it grow. Now, we have to burn it down. The next morning, Daniel arrived at the main office early. No announcement, no noise. Just quiet determination. Lauren was already there. 2 coffees, a stack of folders, eyes like flint. He placed his notebook on the table. Today we go public, he said. Internal first, then across the company. She opened a file labeled Brett. Inside, photos, staff rosters, voice recordings, complaint timelines. It's airtight, she said. They can't talk their way out. Daniel nodded, but his voice held something deeper. This isn't just about firing people. Lauren tilted her head. Then what is it? He tapped the notebook. It's about rebuilding trust with staff, with customers, with ourselves. A pause, then, eyes locked on hers, Daniel spoke with quiet clarity. We're not holding a meeting. We're holding a mirror, and I want every manager to see exactly what they've become. The meeting room filled slowly. District managers, store leaders, some curious, some restless. Brett walked in last, phone in hand, jacket too expensive for his salary. He scanned the room like he owned it. grinning like he already knew the ending. Look. uh, Lauren stood up first, calm, composed. She shared routine updates, operations, numbers, logistics, normal, reassuring. Then the lights dimmed. The screen behind her lit up. Then Daniel stepped forward. No slides, no flashy visuals, just him, alone. A few whispers stirred. "Who's this guy?" Brett looked up, confused, then froze. Daniel's voice sliced through the quiet. "I started this company in a borrowed kitchen, and last week I was thrown out of one of my own stores for asking if the food was fresh." Silence. Even Brett stopped smiling. Daniel stood still, hands loose at his sides, eyes sweeping the room. "Sat in your stores. I ate what your teams served. I listened to what they said when they thought no one was listening. Someone shifted in their seat, another cleared their throat. Then the screen behind him flicked again, audio recordings, raw and undeniable. The voice, "Just say it's fresh, corporate doesn't check." Another, "She's dating Brett. She doesn't have to follow the rules." Daniel turned toward the back of the room. Brett's chair creaked, his posture stiffened. More audio. Laughter. Bragging. A manager calling guests sheep. Daniel let the silence settle. He didn't explain. He didn't need to. Then he spoke, quiet but resolute. "I built this on values. You turned it into favors, shortcuts, and silence." No one looked at Brett, not even Brett himself. He sat stiffly, staring at nothing, as if denial could turn him invisible. Lauren stepped forward with the remote. One soft click. The screen behind them shifted. Faces appeared, real people. Some smiling mid-shift, others caught in quiet exhaustion. Photos from break rooms, back kitchens, long-forgotten staff walls. "These," she said, her voice steady, "are the ones who kept it going, the ones who stayed late, picked up extra shifts, cleaned what others ignored, the ones who spoke up, even when it could have cost them." She paused. Most of them were overlooked. Some were pushed out. She pointed to a list of names. Not one of these employees was promoted in the last 12 months. Another list appeared, shorter, familiar surnames repeated across departments. Every person on this list is connected to someone in this room. Silence, dense, unmoving. Daniel stepped beside her again, not from a place of authority, but from something deeper. Responsibility. This company was built to serve food, but also to serve people. Not just the ones who look like you, think like you, or owe you something. He looked at Brett, still no eye contact. Daniel stepped forward into the center of the room. No podium, no presentation, just a voice shaped by quiet fury and love. "I've watched good people break under pressure. Not from customers, but from the ones who were supposed to lead them." He swept his gaze slowly across the room. All workers afraid to speak, managers lying to cover the cracks, team members protecting friends instead of protecting the standard. He paused, the room holding its breath. This isn't about one man, not just Brett. It's about what we let grow while we looked away. Heads dropped. Guilt spread like fog. Daniel's voice rose, not loud, but resolute. "Today, we clean house. Not just by title, but by action." He pointed to the screen. "If you lead with fear, you won't lead here. Not anymore." Silence pressed in again. Then Brett finally stood. But no one stood with him. He looked around, searching for a nod, a glance, a shoulder. None came. Daniel didn't move. He didn't need to. Lauren stepped forward and handed Brett a letter. Termination, immediate. "You knew the rules," she said quietly. "You chose your own." Brett folded the paper once, walked out. No one followed. Daniel turned back to the room, eyes scanning every face. "This isn't about punishment," he said. "It's about protection of the mission of the people still trying to do it right." He opened his notebook, thumbing through the pages. Each line, a lived moment. Each name, a reason to act. He looked up again. "If you've built your store on trust, thank you." He let the words settle. "If you've built it on fear, you've got two choices. Change it or step aside." No applause, no cheers. But this time, they listened. The meeting ended with quiet footsteps, small groups leaving slowly. Whispers followed, not gossip, realization. Daniel stayed behind. The room empty now, just rows of chairs, each one having held someone accountable for what came next. Lauren returned, carrying a small box. Brett's things, branded jacket, company phone, a framed photo from a past team event. Daniel picked it up. 4 managers, arms around each other, plastic smiles, empty eyes. He set it down face down. "We have to rebuild trust," he said softly, "one floor tile at a time." Lauren nodded. "I've already drafted a plan. Store visits, one-on-one staff interviews." Daniel flipped to a clean page in his notebook. "Start fresh," he said. "No titles, no filters, just voices, unedited." 2 days later, Daniel walked into another store. No cameras, no assistants, just him, human, present. The cashier looked up, recognition flashing behind wide eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked hesitantly. Daniel smiled. "Only if you've got 5 minutes to talk." She called over the assistant manager, young, unsure, but curious. They sat in a corner booth. No clipboard, no checklist. Daniel asked one question. "What's the hardest part of this job no one talks about?" The manager blinked, then slowly answered. "Feeling replaceable, even when we care." Daniel wrote it down, word for word. Then he asked, "What would you fix if you had the power?" She didn't hesitate. "Respect. We want to do things right, but no one listens." Daniel nodded. "Son will now." And for the first time in weeks, he believed it. That night, Daniel sat in his car again. Same notebook, same lot, but something was different. He flipped through the day's notes. Real answers, honest voices, not complaints. Truth. One page stood out. A quote from a kitchen worker. "I don't need praise, just space to care." Daniel underlined it twice. He thought of the girl with trembling hands, the boy who warned him about the freezer, the cleaner who smiled through exhaustion. They weren't the problem. They were the pulse, still beating beneath everything broken. He turned to a fresh page. At the top he wrote, "Rebuild with them." Then just below, "Offer them with." Daniel closed his notebook slowly. No grand speech, no rollout, no press release. Just one quiet promise from the man who started it all. It will keep showing up until they know they're seen. The next morning, Daniel returned to the very first store, the one where it had all begun and nearly unraveled. He walked in quietly. No disguise, no hesitation. The girl at the counter looked up, froze mid-sentence. Then, slowly, her eyes dropped. Daniel offered a gentle smile. "Still making those dry sandwiches?" She let out a nervous laugh. "Little less dry now." He stepped aside as the lunch crowd began forming, then waited by the exit, patient and calm, until her break finally came. They sat outside on the curb, paper cups in hand, shoulder to shoulder, not boss and employee, just 2 people sharing space. "I thought I was going to be fired," she admitted, voice small. "I said things I regret." Daniel nodded. "But you showed up today. That matters more to me than a perfect review ever could." Silence settled. Not awkward, just honest. They didn't need to talk more. The moment spoke for itself. Later that afternoon, Danielle visited the second store, the one that had once echoed with silence, where indifference had been the loudest sound in the room. But something had shifted. The same older woman was still wiping tables, but now 2 younger team members moved beside her, joking, cleaning without being told. No manager in sight. No panic. Just effort shared. Daniel ordered a coffee. The same boy who had once refused eye contact now looked him in the eye. "Black, right?" he asked with a small smile. "Figured you'd come back." Daniel nodded. "Looks better in here." The boy shrugged. "We talked after you left. It wasn't working, so we started cleaning, started listening." Daniel took the same seat by the window. The view hadn't changed, but the air had. It was lighter, more alive. He pulled out his notebook. For the first time, he didn't jot down a complaint. He wrote one word, bold and centered. Shift. That evening, Daniel met Lauren outside a store they hadn't visited yet. She handed him a tablet. "Staff Feedback Pilots Live," she said. He scrolled through the first few entries. Short, honest, raw. More breaks. Fewer threats. Just talk to us, like people. He breathed in slowly, feeling grounded again, not driven by anger, but by something steadier. Hope. As they walked in, a young shift lead held the door open. She didn't recognize them, but she smiled anyway. Inside, the store was buzzing, not chaotic, just full of motion, energy, life. A teenager helped clean trays without being told. 2 cooks laughed over spilled sauce, not with bitterness, but ease. No one yelled. Daniel and Lauren stood near the drink station, watching. "I don't think we need to say anything," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "Not yet. Let them lead this part." In that moment, he saw it clearly. It wasn't just his company anymore. It was theirs again. At headquarters, change moved quietly, not imposed from the top, but seeded from the ground. Training manuals were rewritten, not by executives, but by cashiers and line cooks. Lauren led new onboarding sessions. Each one started not with a slogan, but a story, something real, something lived. Daniel sat in the back of one session. No name tag, no title, just listening. A young team member shared how scared she'd been her first week, how one kind manager had noticed and made her stay. Daniel wrote her name down. Later, he passed her in the hallway, paused, and held out his hand. "Thank you for staying." She blinked in surprise, then smiled. Real, wide, unexpected. "No one's ever said that to me." Daniel nodded. "You'll hear it more now." Back in his office, he taped a note to the wall. "Culture is felt, not said." Beneath it, another line. "Make them feel it, every day." Months passed. The stores looked the same from the outside, but inside something had shifted. Staff laughed more, not forced, but free. Managers gave feedback without shouting. New hires stopped quitting after the first week. Daniel kept visiting, not to inspect, to listen. He sat in break rooms, shared coffee with dishwashers, listened to stories from cooks who rarely got to speak. One day, a cashier handed him a folded note. No name, just 3 words inside, all capital letters. "We see you." Daniel held the note for a while. He didn't smile, didn't cry. He just let the words settle. Because for the first time in a long time, they weren't talking to the CEO. They were speaking to the man who kept showing up. Not with cameras, not for his speech. But when no one believed, he still cared. Daniel stood outside one of the original stores one morning. The brick was weathered, the sign slightly crooked, but still standing. Inside, he watched a new hire train another with patience, encouragement. No supervisor hovered nearby. There was no fear in their voices. He stepped into the kitchen. The freezer was spotless. The grill was cleaned, without being told. The manager waved from the back. She wasn't rushing. She was present. Daniel sat in the dining room with a small meal. No clipboard, no pretense. Just a burger and fries. A child spilled a drink at the next table. Before the mother could react, a staff member walked over with napkins, smiling. No orders barked, just care. Daniel watched in quiet awe, burger in hand, as the team moved together, not perfectly, but honestly. And for the first time in years, he finished his food. Every bite, still warm, still real. At the counter, he waited for his receipt. The cashier looked up. "Would you like to leave feedback?" Danny paused, then nodded, took the pen and slowly wrote in the space marked comments. "Keep choosing care over speed." He handed it back. The cashier read it, then smiled. No words needed. Outside, the sky was pale with evening. A soft wind stirred. The scent of fries lingered in the air. Daniel walked to his car. No speech prepared, no cameras waiting. It's just a quiet seat. And a notebook now. Fool. He didn't write in it. He didn't need to. Because the work was no longer in his hands. It had returned to the people. To the ones who show up tired. Who wipe tables without being told. Who speak up, even when it's hard. And for the first time in a very long time, Daniel let himself believe. This time, they'll finish what he started.